There is a love that existed before time, before your first breath, before your first failure, before the world ever told you who you had to be. It is a love that does not change. It does not leave. It does not die. This is not the kind of love you chase. It's the kind of love that chases you. When you are lost, when you are tired, when you are too broken to believe, you are still being held. Because there is one thing that never dies, the love of God, and this is the journey back to it. Before you took your first breath, before your eyes opened to light, before the world ever gave you a name, there was a love that already knew you. Not the kind of love that comes and goes, not the kind that waits for you to be good enough, or smart enough, or strong enough. This love was already decided, already given, already woven into the very DNA of your soul. The love of God didn't wait for you to be born. It was there from the beginning of time, when He imagined you, designed you, called you His own. Long before your parents held you, long before you could even cry, long before you could sin, fail, question, or walk away, He loved you. And not just in theory, not just in potential, but with a passion so deep it reaches eternity. This is the kind of love that isn't measured by worthiness, but by identity. You were made in His image, formed by His hands, desired by His heart. You didn't have to do anything to earn it. You were already chosen, already wanted, already treasured. The world tells us that love must be earned, that we must prove ourselves to be worthy of someone staying, that if we perform well enough, speak kindly enough, look attractive enough, achieve enough, maybe then we'll be loved. But God's love turns all of that upside down. He loved you before you could offer Him anything. He saw your future and still said yes. He saw your failures and still called you beloved. He saw the moments you would run from Him and still knit you together in your mother's womb with joy. Psalm 139 says, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." That means every single part of your story, before the world touched you, before heartbreak touched you, before rejection or abandonment or fear, was already seen and already surrounded by love. You didn't surprise God. You never have, and you never will. That shame you carry, that guilt that whispers in the dark, that insecurity that keeps you quiet in a crowded room, none of it changes His love. None of it ever did. Because He loved you before all of it. Before the pain, before the mistakes, before the anxiety, before the self-hate. You were loved in a pure place, a sacred place, a place untouched by this world. And even now, when life has layered you with wounds, masks, defense mechanisms, and scars, His love still sees the child He created, the one He rejoiced over, the one He still does. Sometimes we think we need to return to God to be loved, but the truth is, we're returning to a love that never left, a love that's been there from the beginning. The world may tell you you're not enough. People may leave. Circumstances may crush you. Your own mind may betray you. But His love remains. It doesn't flicker. It doesn't fade. It doesn't hesitate. It simply is, and always has been. Imagine the moment God dreamed you into existence. Not a mistake, not a burden, not an accident. A masterpiece. A soul He longed to walk with. A life He knew would matter. A voice He wanted to hear. A heart He would pursue again and again and again. That love existed before you made a single choice. That love existed before the trauma, before the heartbreak, before the questions. It was there, holding you before anyone else did. And now, as you sit wherever you are, maybe tired, maybe numb, maybe searching for something that feels real, you need to know this. You are not trying to find love. You are simply remembering it, rediscovering what has always been true. That no matter what has happened, no matter how far you feel from God, His love has never taken a step away from you. The same love that created galaxies and parted seas and healed the blind is the love that formed your heart and whispered your name into existence. You are here not by chance, but by divine desire. And that desire was born of love. A love that cannot be killed by disappointment. A love that cannot be buried by shame. A love that cannot be silenced by your mistakes. A love that existed before time and will exist long after time ends. There is one thing that never dies, and you were born from it. That love is not just something God gives, it's who He is. And because He is eternal, His love for you is eternal too. You cannot outrun it. You cannot outsin it. You cannot outgrow it. And the sooner you stop trying to earn it and start receiving it, the sooner you'll begin to feel the peace you've been searching for your whole life. Because this love, it heals, it restores, it anchors, it softens what's been hardened and strengthens what's been broken. You were loved before you were born, and you will be loved forevermore. Failure is something we try so hard to avoid. We fear it. We run from it. We disguise it behind masks of perfection, behind rehearsed smiles, behind the words "I'm fine" when, inside, we are anything but. Failure, to the world, often means disqualification. It whispers that you're no longer worthy, that you've blown your chance, that you're too far gone now to be forgiven, to be chosen, to be loved. But God's love doesn't operate by the world's rules. His love isn't fragile. It's not conditional. It's not performance-based. It doesn't walk out the door when you fall, doesn't give up when you mess up, doesn't shrink away from the parts of you that are broken, ashamed, or undone. God's love holds, especially through failure. In fact, that may be where it shines brightest. When everything else breaks, His love remains. When your plans fall apart, when you fall apart, His love wraps around you tighter. When Peter denied Jesus 3 times, when fear overtook loyalty and shame filled his chest, Jesus didn't condemn him. He didn't disqualify him. He found him. He restored him. He reminded him that his failure wasn't the end of the story. That kind of love doesn't come from man. It comes only from the heart of God, and it's available to you right now. Maybe you failed in ways that no one knows. Maybe you carry secret regrets, words you can't take back, choices that haunt your nights. Maybe you feel like the person in the mirror isn't someone you recognize anymore. But even here, even now, God's love is holding you. Not as a project to fix, but as a beloved child to embrace. He's not waiting for you to clean yourself up. He's not demanding perfection. He's reaching out, right in the mess, right in the ache, saying, "I'm still here, and I'm not letting go." You can't shock Him. You can't disappoint Him out of loving you. He knew everything you'd do before you did it, and still chose the cross. Still chose you. Still calls you mine. The love of God doesn't just endure your failure, it meets you in it. It kneels down in your lowest place and lifts your face to remind you, this isn't the end. This is the beginning of grace. Because grace doesn't start when you succeed. Grace begins where you fall. That's why Jesus came, not for the healthy, but for the broken. Not for the perfect, but for the lost. And if that's where you are, then that's exactly where He wants to meet you. Failure doesn't disqualify you. In God's economy, it can actually qualify you. Because a heart that knows what it means to be forgiven, to be loved when it didn't deserve it, is a heart that understands mercy. And mercy is what heals the world. Mercy is what changes lives. Mercy is what turns a failure into a testimony. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond grace. You are not outside the reach of the love of God. No matter what you've done, no matter how many times, no matter how deep the regret, His love is deeper still. He doesn't just want your good days. He wants all of you, the real you. The parts that cry in secret. The parts that wish they could go back and undo what's been done. The parts that wonder if you'll ever be whole again. Yes, even those parts, especially those parts. That's where He begins. That's where He builds something new. That's where He reminds you that you were never loved for your perfection. You were always loved because you are His, and nothing you've done can cancel that. Truth, nothing. The enemy will try to convince you otherwise. He will use your failures to isolate you, to silence you, to convince you that you are unworthy to come home. But God isn't intimidated by your mistakes. He's not keeping a list of your wrongs. He's keeping the door open, the light on, the arms wide, ready to welcome you back, not with condemnation, but with compassion. The prodigal son came home rehearsing an apology. He expected punishment, but the father ran to him, embraced him, restored him, loved him. Not after he got it all together, but while he still smelled like the pig pen. That is the kind of love God has for you. A love that runs to you when you're at your worst. A love that covers your shame with grace. A love that turns your story around, not because you earned it, but because He is good. So let go of the lie that says you're disqualified. Let go of the shame that chains your heart. Let go of the fear that says you can't be loved. And let yourself be held, fully, freely, forever, by the only love that doesn't break under the weight of your brokenness. The love of God doesn't fail you. It holds you, especially when you fail. And it won't let you go. Darkness doesn't always come suddenly. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, unnoticed at first, like a shadow at the edge of your heart. One day you're smiling through the pain, and the next, you can't remember the last time you felt whole. Darkness comes in different forms. It can be grief that lingers long after the world has moved on. Anxiety that hums like static beneath your skin. Guilt that eats away at joy, or a quiet emptiness that no one sees but you. It can be the weight of mistakes, the ache of abandonment, the silence of God when you're desperate to hear His voice. The dark doesn't always look like disaster. Sometimes it just looks like numbness, like waking up and going through the motions, like wondering if life will ever feel like it used to, like wondering if you'll ever feel anything again. And in that place, it's easy to believe that you're alone, that no one sees you, that maybe not even God does. But what if I told you that the dark is not the absence of God? What if I told you it's the place He's most present, even when you can't feel Him? Because the truth is, His love doesn't wait for you to find your way out. His love comes to find you in the dark. He is not afraid of your shadows. He is not repelled by your questions. He doesn't flinch at your pain. He walks into it, sits with you in it, whispers truth when you've forgotten how to believe. The same God who hovered over the deep, over the void, over the formless chaos before the world began, is the God who hovers over your life when all you see is mess. And just like in Genesis, when He said, "Let there be light," He still speaks light into your darkness today. Maybe you didn't come looking for Him. Maybe you were done trying. Maybe you gave up hope. But He never gave up on you. He never stopped searching. He never stopped calling your name. Because His love doesn't wait at the end of your journey. It meets you in the middle of your despair. When Elijah ran into the wilderness, overwhelmed and wanting to die, God didn't rebuke him. He fed him, let him sleep, spoke to him in a whisper. That's love. When Hagar was cast out and sat in the desert with her child, weeping and hopeless, the angel of the Lord found her and said, I see you. That's love. When Jonah ran in the opposite direction, God sent a storm, not to punish, but to rescue. That's love. When you sit in your own kind of cave, too tired to climb out, too broken to try, that same love comes to find you. Not to drag you out in shame, but to sit beside you, to hold you, to remind you, even here, even now, you are seen, you are known, you are loved. The dark doesn't scare God. It doesn't confuse him. It doesn't cause him to hesitate. He's the God who walks through fire, through floods, through the valley of the shadow of death, not to get to you, but to be with you, to stay with you, because he knows that sometimes the only thing more powerful than being pulled from the dark is being loved inside of it, and his love does exactly that. It doesn't just save you, it stays with you. It anchors you when the waves crash. It steadies you when the night stretches long. It whispers when the noise of fear gets loud. I'm here. I haven't left. I never will. Maybe the miracle isn't that the darkness ends. Maybe the miracle is that you're not alone in it. That even when you can't feel him, he's near. That even when you can't pray, his spirit prays for you. That even when you can't believe, his love believes in you. That's the kind of love that changes everything. The love that isn't afraid of your questions, your anger, your silence. The love that doesn't need you to fix yourself before it comes close. The love that sits with you in the dark until your eyes adjust and you can see again. So if you're there now, in the middle of a darkness that feels endless, please know this. You are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. You are not invisible. The God who formed you, who loved you before you were born, who held you through failure, he has found you here, and he's not leaving. His love is the light that will never go out, and it's shining now, right here, in the very place you thought he'd never come. From the time we are young, we are taught that love is something to be earned, that to be accepted, we must behave, that to be chosen, we must impress, that to be loved, we must first be good enough, and so we learn to perform. We try harder, we achieve more. We become what people need us to be, hoping that maybe, just maybe, it will make us worthy of their love. And this belief follows us like a shadow into adulthood, into our relationships, into our view of ourselves, and, quietly, even into our relationship with God. We begin to believe that if we don't pray enough, read enough, serve enough, succeed enough, then maybe we're not lovable to him either. We imagine him distant, disappointed, watching with arms crossed until we prove we're worth his attention. But that image is not the God of Scripture. That image is not Jesus. The truth is, God's love was never about your effort. It's not a reward for righteousness. It's a gift, freely given, undeserved, unchanging. Romans 5-8 says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, not after we cleaned up our act, not once we repented perfectly. While we were still sinners, while we were still running, while we were still broken, selfish, stubborn, and unsure. He loved us then. He loves us now, and he will love us still. You don't have to earn his love because you never could, and he never asked you to. He just asked you to receive it. But for many of us, that's the hardest part. It's easier to perform than to be vulnerable. It's easier to check religious boxes than to let God see the real, messy, unedited version of us. But real love can't be earned, and it can't be faked. It must be received, and it must be received as we are. The beauty of God's love is that it doesn't increase with your obedience or decrease with your mistakes. It just is, constant, faithful, fierce. You may change, your moods, your faith, your circumstances may all shift, but His love remains. He doesn't love a future version of you. He doesn't love the idea of you once you've grown. He loves you now, with all the baggage, all the confusion, all the flaws. And that kind of love is the very thing that begins to heal what years of striving have damaged. You don't have to hustle for God's affection. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to be worthy. You already are, not because of what you've done, but because of who He is, because you bear His image, because He made you with care, because when He looks at you, He sees someone He died to rescue, not someone He barely tolerates. That should change the way we live, not out of fear or duty, but out of response. When you realize you are loved unconditionally, something inside of you begins to soften. You stop hiding, you stop pretending, you start resting. And from that rest comes real obedience, not to earn, but to honor, not to win approval, but to walk in relationship. That's the difference between religion and grace. Religion says, if you obey, you will be loved. Grace says, you are already loved, so now you can live free. And in that freedom, you begin to love others the same way, not waiting for them to deserve it, not keeping score, but offering what you've received, freely, joyfully, boldly, because the love of God, once received deeply, never stays contained. It spills over. It heals not only the receiver, but everyone around them. So, if you're tired of performing, tired of wondering whether you've done enough, said enough, been enough, let that go. Come as you are. Let Him love you now, in this moment, in this condition. Stop striving. Stop hiding. Breathe. You were never asked to earn it, only to believe it. And if that feels too simple, too generous, too good to be true, remember, that's what grace is. Scandalous, beautiful, transformative, and available, always, for you, for me, for anyone humble enough to say, God, I receive your love, even when I don't understand it. That's where healing begins. That's where striving ends. That's where real life is found. In a love that doesn't need to be earned. In a love that never ends. There are moments in life when everything falls away. The relationships you thought would last forever unravel. The plans you built your hopes upon collapse without warning. The strength you prided yourself on disappears, leaving you feeling like a shell of the person you used to be. You look around and realize what once filled your world is now silent, empty, gone. These are the moments that strip us bare. The ones that take us beyond what words can hold. Moments where the applause stops, the crowd fades, and even your own voice goes quiet, and all that's left is breath and pain and questions. It's in these moments that you discover the one thing that can never be taken, the one thing that cannot be broken, cannot be silenced, cannot be lost. The love of God. When His love was all you had, it was enough. Maybe you didn't realize it then. Maybe all you felt was the ache, the grief, the silence. Maybe you cried out and heard nothing back. Maybe you stared at the ceiling through sleepless nights, wondering if anyone, anywhere, saw you. But looking back, somehow, you're still here. Somehow, your heart still beats. Somehow, your soul still whispers hope even when your circumstances don't. That's what love does. It carries, it shelters, it surrounds. Even when you can't feel it, even when you don't recognize it. The love of God isn't always loud. It doesn't always come in miracles or breakthroughs or moments of ecstasy. Sometimes, it comes as the breath you didn't know you could take. The courage to get out of bed when your soul felt heavy. The quiet strength to take one more step when you didn't know where you were going. Sometimes, His love shows up as survival, as presence, as the thread that holds you together when everything else falls apart. When His love was all you had, you learned things you never could have learned in the light. You learned how deep it runs, how steady it holds, how fiercely it fights for you, even when you had no fight left. You discovered a kind of intimacy that only comes from shared pain, a closeness that isn't dependent on circumstances, but on nearness, divine, unshakable nearness. His love didn't require your strength. It didn't demand your perfection. It simply stayed, through the tears, through the fear, through the silence, through the questions. You may not have seen it clearly then, but now you realize what held you wasn't luck or coincidence. It was love, His love. Maybe you've been through loss that still leaves you gasping. Maybe you've watched dreams die. Maybe you've tasted betrayal, rejection, abandonment. And maybe, in those darkest hours, you reached for anything to make the pain stop. But when it was all said and done, when every distraction had lost its power, you found that He was still there. And He wasn't mad. He wasn't disappointed. He wasn't keeping score. He was simply present, with eyes full of compassion, with hands ready to hold, with a love that said, even here, especially here, I will not leave you. There is something holy about being brought to nothing and finding God there, not as punishment, but as a reminder that love was never meant to be rooted in outcomes, that peace was never supposed to come from possessions, that your worth was never based on your productivity. It was always about Him and you, and the love between you that nothing in this world can break. That's why His love is enough, not because it changes everything instantly, but because it carries you when nothing else can. It rebuilds you when everything else has fallen down. It holds you when your own arms give out. When His love was all you had, you learned that it was all you ever truly needed. And now, even as you begin to rebuild, as life begins to move again, that truth remains. His love wasn't just enough then, it's enough now, and it always will be. So if you find yourself there again, stripped down, worn out, clinging to faith by a thread, remember this: you are not without, you are not abandoned, you are not empty, you are still held, still loved, still carried. His love was all you had, and it was everything. There are seasons when God goes quiet, not because He has left, not because He is angry, and not because you've done something wrong, but because there is something sacred He wants to show you in the silence. And that silence, though terrifying at first, holds something deeper than words ever could. We're used to associating love with words, with affirmations, with answers, with signs. And when heaven feels silent, we begin to question: have I been abandoned? Am I not praying hard enough? Has His love run out? But what if the silence isn't a withdrawal of love, but the clearest expression of trust? What if silence is how God draws us into intimacy, not distance? Think about it. When someone is speaking constantly, there's information. But when someone can sit with you in complete silence and still make you feel safe, that's not information. That's presence. That's love. That's trust. And that is the kind of love God has for you. A love that is not afraid of the quiet. A love that does not need noise to prove itself. A love that walks with you in silence, when the prayers are unanswered, when the healing hasn't come, when the questions remain hanging in the dark. You might be walking through a season like that now. A season where the words of Scripture feel dry, where worship feels routine, where your heart aches for a word from Him, but nothing comes. And still He is there, not absent, not distant, just quiet. Because in that quiet, something sacred is forming, a deeper trust, a more rooted faith, A love that is not based on outcomes or feelings, but on the assurance that He is who He says He is. Even when you can't hear Him, God's love is not a performance, it is a presence. And presence does not always speak, it simply stays. When Jesus stood before Pilate, falsely accused, misunderstood, innocent, He didn't speak. He was silent. Not because He was powerless, but because love doesn't always fight with noise. Sometimes love stands still and holds its ground. And in that moment of silence, the greatest act of love the world has ever known was being fulfilled. What does that tell you? It tells you that silence can be sacred, that silence can be holy, that silence does not equal absence. It may feel like a void, but it is actually a vessel, carrying you deeper into the kind of relationship that doesn't depend on signs, but on surrender. It's easy to trust God when He's speaking, when prayers are being answered, when things are moving. But what about when He's silent? That's when trust is tested. That's when faith grows roots. That's when love becomes real. Because love that stays quiet and stays near, that's love that is unshakable. That's love that holds you when nothing makes sense. That's love that stays up with you in the middle of the night when the tears won't stop, even when no words are exchanged. You might be wondering why God hasn't spoken, why you can't hear Him, but maybe He's closer than you think. Maybe He's not speaking because He's listening, because your heart is saying more than your mouth ever could, because your silence is not empty, it's full of emotion, of need, of hope, of brokenness, and He is there in all of it, listening, holding, staying. The silence isn't forever, it's a season, and even in that season, He's still guiding, He's still working, He's still loving. You don't need to feel it to know it. You don't need constant reminders to believe it. His love doesn't vanish just because the volume lowers. In fact, that's often where it becomes the loudest, not in sound, but in depth. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that it was in the silence that you were shaped the most, that your roots went deep, that your faith became real, that your heart finally learned that God's love isn't proven by how often He speaks, but by the fact that He stays, even when He says nothing at all. So if you're there now, in that sacred silence, let go of the need to hear. Let go of the fear that you've been forgotten. Let go of the pressure to produce, to feel, to prove, and just be. Sit with Him. Let Him sit with you. No pressure, no performance, just presence, just love. A love that walks with you, not only in the miracles, not only in the breakthroughs, but in the silence, especially in the silence. That is the kind of love that never dies. There is something profoundly healing about being chosen. Not once, not in a fleeting moment, not when you're perfect, but again and again and again, especially when you are not. To be chosen at your best is comforting, but to be chosen at your worst, that is redemption. That is grace. That is the kind of love God gives. A love that chooses you not because you've earned it, but because He has already decided that you are worth it. A love that doesn't choose you out of obligation, but out of deep, eternal desire. A love that looked at all of who you are, past, present, and future, and still said, yes, I want you. This is not the love of the world, where value is measured by usefulness, beauty, status, or compliance. This is divine love. This is a choosing that transcends time and behavior. This is a love that sees you when you run and still reaches. A love that watches you fall and still comes closer. A love that hears your doubts, your complaints, your silence, and doesn't back away. It draws nearer. It whispers through the shame, through the fear, through the noise of unworthiness. You are still mine. Think about how many times you've walked away. How many times you've promised to be stronger, more faithful, more consistent, only to stumble again. And yet, each time you return, you find the door still open, the light still on, the Father still standing at the edge of the road, waiting, not with judgment, but with joy. That's the kind of love that cannot be explained by logic. That's the kind of love that can only be felt through grace. The prodigal didn't deserve to be chosen again. He had wasted everything. He had broken trust. He had brought shame, and still, his Father ran to him, wrapped his arms around him, kissed his dirt-stained face, and threw a party, not because he was good, but because he was loved. And so are you. You are loved in that exact same way. No matter how far you've gone, no matter how often, no matter how deeply you've doubted, rebelled, ignored, or questioned, he still chooses you. He doesn't flinch at your flaws. He doesn't regret saving you. He doesn't withhold love until you get it right. He chooses you now, today, in this very moment. Not because you're perfect, but because you're his. And he never unchooses what he has called. You may feel forgotten. You may feel like you've failed too many times to be worthy of a second or seventh chance. But grace says otherwise. Grace says you are still seen, still wanted, still chosen, again and again and again. The cross wasn't a one-time act of love. It was a declaration for all time. A declaration that says, I choose you, even when it costs me everything. Jesus didn't go to the cross hoping you'd deserve it one day. He went knowing everything you would do, everything you would doubt, every moment you would struggle. And still, he said, I will die for that one. That is love. That is the kind of love that leaves the 99 to chase after you. That is the kind of love that steps into your mess, not to shame you, but to sit with you, to walk with you, to restore you, to remind you, you are still the one I came for. And he doesn't get tired of choosing you. He's not worn out by your need. He's not annoyed by your weakness. He doesn't keep score. He just keeps loving. And that love is the safest place you will ever know. So stop running. Stop hiding. Stop believing the lie that says you've gone too far. You haven't. You're not lost beyond his reach. You're not broken beyond repair. You're not forgotten. You're not forsaken. You are chosen, still, always. Again, let that truth sink in, not just in your mind, but in the depths of your heart. Let it challenge the walls you've built. Let it melt the hardness that pain created. Let it speak louder than every voice that told you you're not enough. Because to him, you are. You are worth the pursuit, worth the sacrifice, worth the cross, worth choosing again and again. And nothing you do will ever change that. That is what makes his love so different, so holy, so eternal. It's not about your performance. It's about his promise. A promise sealed in blood. A promise that cannot be broken. A promise that says, no matter how many times you fall, he will be there, ready, waiting, choosing you again. There are things we carry that feel beyond repair. Moments we wish we could erase. Words we wish we had never said. Decisions we made in fear, in pain, in weakness. Moments that now echo through our lives like scars that won't fade. We look back and wonder if we ruined something permanently, if we closed a door that God himself won't open again. And in that wondering, shame begins to build walls around the heart. Regret becomes a constant companion. Guilt becomes the lens through which we view everything. And slowly, we begin to believe the lie that says, it's too late, too broken, too far gone. But the love of God has never been limited by brokenness. His love does not end where our failures begin. In fact, It enters right there, into the places that feel irredeemable, and breathes life again. Because the love of God doesn't just comfort, it doesn't just cover, it redeems. It reaches into what was wasted and gives it purpose. It reaches into what was shattered and creates beauty. It turns what was meant for evil into something that will heal others. That is the redemptive love of God, a love that doesn't just rescue you, but restores you. That doesn't just save you from the fire, but uses the ashes to plant something new. In Joel 2:25, God says, "I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten." Not just the good moments, the years, the lost years, the ones you thought were gone forever. The seasons you spent running, numbing, grieving, hiding, the relationships you broke, the chances you missed, the self you lost, all of it redeemed, not erased, not forgotten, but reworked into something only God could design. That's the miracle of His love, that nothing is wasted, nothing is useless, nothing is too far gone to be woven into the greater tapestry He is creating. You may think you've ruined it, you may think you've missed it, but God does not deal in final failures. He is the God of resurrection, the God of comebacks, the God who takes your worst day and writes it into a story of grace. He is not afraid of your history. He already stepped into it at the cross. He already carried the weight of it. He already paid for it. And now, He's offering you something more than just forgiveness. He's offering redemption. Redemption means that what the enemy used to destroy you, God will use to define you, not by the pain, but by the healing. Not by the shame, but by the glory that comes from surviving and overcoming. Your story doesn't end with the fall. It begins again with love, and not just any love. His love, the kind of love that pulls you out of the pit, not just to save you, but to give you a voice, to give you a testimony, to give you purpose in the very places that once held your pain. Redemption doesn't mean the past disappears. It means the past loses its power to define you. You are not your failure. You are not your addiction. You are not your divorce. You are not your trauma. You are not your sin. You are His, chosen, loved, called, and redeemed, fully, freely, eternally. And when God redeems something, He doesn't give you back what you lost. He gives you back more. He gives you back what you didn't even know was missing. Joy, peace, clarity, identity, and love that runs deeper than anything you had before. He uses the broken places to shine His light. He uses the healed wounds to bring healing to others. He uses your story, not in spite of the pain, but through it, because that's who He is, the one who redeems everything, the one who wastes nothing, the one who says, "What you thought disqualified you is now the very thing I will use." His love is that powerful, that patient, that complete. So stop trying to rewrite the past. Bring it to Him. Lay it down. Let Him take it. Let Him redeem it. Let Him show you what only He can do. Because no matter how broken it looks, no matter how lost it feels, no matter how long it's been, His love can redeem everything. And that redemption becomes your praise, your freedom, your new beginning. This is not the end. It's the turning point. The moment you stop carrying what He already died to forgive. The moment you realize that even this, yes, even this can be redeemed. Death has always been the great interruption. The moment that ends what we know. The boundary we cannot cross back from. It steals the voices we love, the embraces we long for, the time we thought we had more of. It's final in every earthly sense. We write eulogies, we weep, we sit in silence with a kind of ache that words can't hold. Death does not ask permission. It does not arrive gently, and when it comes, it feels like love has lost, like joy has been buried, like all that's left is memory and longing and unanswered questions. But what if I told you that love did not lose, that love never left, that in the silence of death, in the coldness of that separation, there exists a love so fierce, so eternal, so unconquerable, that even death cannot stop it? Because that is the truth, that is the miracle, that is the foundation of all hope. God's love is stronger than death. It didn't just survive death, it walked through it. It stood in its face and said no. It went into the grave and came back with victory in its hands. The love of God did not stay in heaven when we fell. It came down, it took on skin, it stepped into sorrow, and ultimately it stepped into death itself, so we would never have to face it alone. On the cross, Jesus didn't just die for your sin, He died for your separation, for your isolation, for your loss. And when He rose again, He didn't come back just to prove a point. He came back to prove that love always has the last word, that death is not the end of the story, that loss is not the final chapter, that for every grave there is a garden, for every silence there is a resurrection song, for every goodbye there is a promise of reunion. Love is stronger than death, not just in eternity, but here and now, in the way it lives on in the hearts of those who believe, in the way it whispers through grief, I am still with you, in the way it carries you through funeral homes, hospital rooms, and nights where the tears won't stop. In those moments, love does not run away. It holds you, breathes for you, anchors you, and promises that even this, even death, cannot separate you from the God who loves you. Romans 8:38-39 says it plainly, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Not even death. That means the people you've lost are not gone from His hands. That means the love you carry does not end in a cemetery. That means that even when this life ends, the story of love continues, unbroken, uninterrupted, undefeated. You are not moving toward death. You are moving toward eternal love, toward full restoration, toward a day when every tear will be wiped away, when sorrow will be no more, when reunion will be more than a dream. It will be real, and it will be forever. Until then, His love walks with you in the grief. It honors your ache. It doesn't rush your mourning, but it gently reminds you, this isn't the end. It never was. Love never dies because God never dies, and He is love. So when your heart is heavy, when you miss someone so deeply it hurts to breathe, let His love breathe for you. Let it sit with you. Let it remind you that death doesn't cancel what God has ordained, that separation is temporary, that pain is not the final word, that love, real love, divine love, never lets go, even when you cannot see, even when all you have are memories, even when the tomb still feels closed. Resurrection is coming, reunion is promised, and the love that held you then still holds you now. Stronger, deeper, undeniable, indestructible, love stronger than death. There is a moment in every journey of faith when you stop looking for love as something outside of you and begin to realize it was never far to begin with. The love of God is not simply something we receive, it is something that takes root, takes hold, and begins to live inside us. It shapes how we see, how we think, how we breathe. It is not something you visit on Sundays or only feel when worship songs are playing. It is not a fleeting emotion or a warm memory of a time when God felt near. It is something deeper, something eternal, something alive. The same love that created the stars now beats within your chest. The same love that rose from the grave now flows through your soul. The same love that whispered your name before the world knew it now dwells in you. This is not poetry. This is promise. Scripture says in Romans 5:5 that the love of God has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. That means His love is not an external force trying to reach you. It is an indwelling presence that refuses to leave you. You carry it into every moment, every conversation, every failure, every joy. You are not just loved. You are a carrier of love, a vessel, a temple, a living testimony that the eternal has touched the temporary and transformed it forever. And because His love is in you, it changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, not as a mistake or a mess, but as a masterpiece, in progress, wrapped in grace. It changes how you see others, not as threats or strangers, but as souls worthy of compassion. It changes how you face pain, not with fear, but with faith. Not because you won't hurt, but because love is stronger than pain. His love doesn't just comfort you, it transforms you. It teaches you how to stay when everything in you wants to run. It teaches you how to forgive when bitterness seems easier. It teaches you how to hope again when disappointment told you not to. It gives you eyes to see the sacred in the ordinary, courage to stand when you feel weak, and light to shine even when darkness tries to return. His love in you is not passive, it's powerful. It heals what was never touched by human words. It calms storms you couldn't control. It speaks when your own voice is gone. And more than anything, it stays. Through the seasons, through the silence, through the shakings, it stays. And because of that, you stay too. Not by your own strength, but by the love that anchors you deeper than anything life could throw. This love doesn't expire, doesn't erode, doesn't fade with age or doubt or struggle. It is eternal because the one who gave it is eternal. You may forget who you are. You may get lost in grief or fear or confusion. But His love will never lose you. It will keep burning quietly, faithfully within you, reminding you that you are not alone, that you are not empty, that you are not without hope. No matter where you go, no matter what you face, His love goes with you. And when the world grows louder and colder and heavier, it is this love that will be your light. Not just a memory of a moment with God, but the ongoing miracle of His presence in you. So breathe. You don't have to chase what already lives inside you. You don't have to earn what's already been given. You don't have to strive. You just have to stay. Stay rooted in that love. Stay open to it. Stay surrendered to the way it wants to grow through you, because it will. And as it does, it will become your strength, your song, your safe place, your identity. Not something you visit, but something you become. That is the miracle. That is the legacy. That is the unshakable truth. That there is one thing that never dies. Not time, not tragedy, not death itself can kill it. The love of God, and now it lives in you. You've walked through the silence. You've sat with the questions. You've felt the ache of loss, the weight of failure, the need to be loved. But through it all, one thing has remained. His love, unchanging, unshakable, eternal. It's not just around you, it lives in you. So, wherever you go from here, go knowing this: you are still chosen, you are still loved, and that love, it will never die, it will carry you home.